This is 5 on 20 News, where we've got the news of the day and the newscasters are gay. With Luke Goodhart
and Sean Madrid coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. First, the local headlines.
An Arizona resident is one of the protesters who was injured during the ongoing Dakota Access pipeline demonstrations. Vanessa Dundon, who resides in White Cone, Arizona, is a member of the Navajo Nation. Last week, North Dakota police fired tear gas canisters and aimed high-powered water cannons at protesters. Dundon says she was hit in the face with one of those canisters. A photo of Dundon's bruised face was circulated online, amplifying anger around the recent violence at Standing Rock. A GoFundMe page was erected for Dundon and has already raised $75,000. The funds will be used to help pay for medical bills. The police have defended the use of the water cannons, claiming that they were putting out fires set by protesters. But last week, they claimed that there were no water cannons. Instead, they referred to the water sprayers as hoses and said those hoses were being used for safety. Protesters have suffered hypothermia from water blasts, and another woman may lose an arm after getting in a clash with police. Water protectors have been camped out for months to oppose the pipeline, which they say will destroy sacred tribal land. Now, North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple has ordered the evacuation of the protest camps and said anyone not out by December 5th will be arrested for trespassing. Officials said that free speech zones would be set up to accommodate the protesters. The free speech zones will be 10 by 10 areas surrounded by chicken wire.
A University of Arizona professor has biked over 3,000 miles cross-country to investigate complaints against the Affordable Care Act. Professor Paul Gordon rode through rural areas of Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, and Washington State to see why the average American is so incensed over the health care bill commonly called Obamacare. Gordon found that many people simply spit back sound bites from Fox News and other conservative news sources when asked for their critique. Much of the information cited was false. That's no surprise to anyone who's ever tuned into Fox News. The professor says that many people expressed anger over having to pay for others' health care. But at the same time, they showed generosity in their everyday lives, such as offering to fix Gordon's tire and offering him meals during the interview. Gordon's observations show a familiar trend in attitudes towards government efforts to help others. We like to help people as long as we see them face to face. Once the recipients become abstract, then we're quick to turn our backs. Gordon found that his interview subjects were angry at having government tell them what to do, and most showed a vast misunderstanding of how our complicated healthcare system actually works. For the record, Gordon isn't crazy about Obamacare himself because he is angry that it relies on the insurance industry. He prefers a single-payer system similar to Canada and the United Kingdom and pretty much every developed nation on Earth. Next up, Gordon is planning a similar ride through rural Canada, where he will ask residents about their opinions on the country's single-payer system. If nothing else, Gordon will be in great shape by the end of his project and won't need to rely on our insane healthcare system. Maybe rural Obamacare interviewing will become the new fitness trend.
An environmentally friendly fuel company is building a new warehouse in Tucson. Arizona Petroleum Products makes diesel exhaust fluid that reduces emissions from delivery trucks and other vehicles running on diesel. The company will construct a new facility at 1051 South Cherry Avenue. The Tucson location will ensure that the fluid won't need to be transported from other parts of the state, which increases the very emissions they seek to reduce. The company's product specializes in what is known as selective catalytic reduction. This is where a spray is added to a vehicle's exhaust system to control harmful nitrous oxide emissions. The fluid also improves the vehicle's fuel economy and ensures that they meet strict federal clean air standards. APP has already installed tanks for blending and will be ready to operate sometime in 2017. The company now employs 15 people and is looking to add 5 additional jobs.
A group of dog owners in the Oracle neighborhood of Tucson believe that their dogs may have been poisoned. 4 dogs from different households have fallen ill over the past month, with the dogs suffering seizures and foaming of the mouth. 12 birds were also found dead outside homes in the same neighborhood. While the mystery is unsolved, police have issued a photo of the prime suspect, who goes by the name of Alistair Catley. Mr. Catley is now on the run. If you have any information as to the whereabouts of this criminal, shine a laser pointer at the ground in a circle. Now, in international and national news.
Donald Trump is already taking credit for keeping jobs in the U.S. as he promised to during his campaign for president. Carrier, a company owned by United Technologies, a defense contractor, said that they will keep their plant operating in Indiana. Carrier had planned to move their plant to Mexico, bringing with it over 1,000 American jobs. United Technologies already collects $5.6 billion in government contracts, about 10% of its revenue. The U.S. government also gives the company $1.5 billion for research and will now be giving even more. The company said it would receive so-called inducements to stay, which is code for subsidies. Upon the announcement, Trump was heralded as a hero on social media and through his personal mouthpiece, Breitbart News. But what some failed to see is that Trump effectively set up the first legal mechanism for bribery. Scott Lincecum, a trade attorney at the libertarian Cato Institute, criticized the move, saying that taxpayers involuntarily bought an ineffective AC factory. Justin Wolfers, a professor at the University of Michigan, raised troubling questions about Trump's gift to defense. He said that it set a precedent where any company can now threaten to move to Mexico and expect that the government will provide incentives. You know, it's these lazy people that leech off the government and expect a handout that are the problem. It's time to drain the swamp. Oh, wait.
The Apprentice Presidential Edition was back in full swing yesterday. It's not yet confirmed, but it appears that Trump has chosen Stephen Turner Mnuchin as his Treasury Secretary. Mnuchin is a Yale-educated, former Goldman Sachs employee who is the son of another former Goldman Sachs guy. His name has often befuddled newsreaders, maybe because it looks like Munchkin. And maybe this is Trump's way of thickening the swamp before he drains it, because that's pretty much the only explanation as to why he would choose Munchkin. As Treasury Secretary, Mnuchin will dictate fiscal policy and be one of the most powerful men in the world. His qualifications: he produced Mad Max, Fury Road, as well as Avatar. Mnuchin has no government or policy experience and has chiefly served as a Hollywood financer and hedge fund manager. His other qualification is that he was able to raise a ton of money for Trump's campaign. This move has Trump backtracking on his campaign promise, this time involving his statements about big banks. Trump said that he would be tough on big banks and that they were responsible for the kind of corruption that was dubbed the swamp. The only thing that would make the swamp any murkier at this point would be if Trump appointed Jared from Subway as the Attorney General.
But the real winner last night wasn't Mnuchin, but rather former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney. Romney was wined and dined by the president-elect in an event that produced what has to be the best photo of the year. Romney's face echoes what all of us have felt since Donald Trump was elected. After the dinner, Romney, who previously dubbed Trump a fraud, said that the orange creamsicle in chief can lead us to a better future. Romney added that this better future involves him getting fat government contracts. The saddest part of this is that if Romney doesn't get the Secretary of State position he seeks, then the closest he'll ever get to the White House is eating a porterhouse across from the most incompetent president of all time.
Hunter S. Thompson may not be alive anymore, but his presence lives on in literature, journalism, film, and soon cannabis too. Fans of the Gonzo will soon be able to get high just like Hunter S. Thompson did, according to his widow, Anita Thompson. Anita has struck a deal with the Gonzo Trust, a corporation established by the writer before his death in 2005. The agreement grants her ownership rights to Hunter S. Thompson's likeness, as well as occupancy rights to his farm property in Colorado, while giving up her rights to his book proceeds. With marijuana becoming legalized in more states, there has been an increase in interest of reanimating his own personal strain of pot. In a Facebook post, Anita stated that, quote, "I have found a legal method to extract the DNA from Hunter's personal marijuana and hashish that I saved for 12 to 15 years. She is now in talks with a cannabis company to turn that DNA into fresh-grown weed. While smoking 15-year-old zombie weed may not sound appealing to all, we have a feeling that if Hunter S. Thompson were here, he would be very proud of his little soon-to-be drug lord."
And in other drug news, the Food and Drug Administration is permitting phase 3 clinical trials of ecstasy as a treatment for PTSD. These trials would be the final step before ecstasy could be a prescription drug. The trials so far have focused on people suffering from PTSD who had not responded to traditional prescription drugs or psychotherapy. One study found that after 3 doses of MDMA, the patients reported an average of 56% decrease in severity of symptoms. By the end of the study, about 2/3 of the patients no longer met the criteria for having PTSD. The researchers are so impressed with the results of the studies that they have applied for a breakthrough therapy status with the FDA, which would put the approval process on a fast track. If approved, the drug could be available as early as 2021. These recent developments have ravers across the country already scrambling to find a new, illegal, and less mainstream drug to party with. Make note that we were the first to predict the great whippet shortage of 2021.
Tennessee wildfires have claimed another 3 lives, raising a total death toll to 7. On Monday, tourists and residents fled the resort towns of Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge as flames tore through the Great Smoky Mountains. On Tuesday, the devastation of one of the country's most visited national parks came into focus. While Dolly Parton reported via Facebook that Dollywood was spared along with the insane attractions of Pigeon Forge, the area outside of Gatlinburg was said to look like the apocalypse by a fire lieutenant. It is still unclear what sparked the initial fire, but very heavy winds seem to have exacerbated embers on Chimney Tops Trail near Gatlinburg. The Great Smoky Mountains Park Superintendent Cassius Cash, no, we did not make that name up, said, quote, "I've participated in many fires, but none that could have prepared me for this."
And a Chapecoense airliner has crashed into the mountains of Colombia near Medellin. On a recently released recording, a pilot can be heard requesting permission to land due to, quote, total electric failure and lack of fuel. The plane was carrying most of Brazil's Chapecoense football team, along with 20 journalists. Colombian military sources had told the AFP agency, quote, "It is very suspicious that despite the impact, there was no explosion. That reinforces the theory of the lack of fuel," end quote. Reports say that just 6 of the 77 people on board the plane survived. One of the survivors, flight technician Erwin Tumiri, said that he was still alive because he followed safety instructions. He said many passengers stood up and started shouting instead of assuming the brace position as he did. Investigators have yet to announce any single cause for the crash, and a full analysis is expected to take months. This was Luke Goodhart
and Sean Madrid for 5 on 20 News. Next up, Sophie Gibson-Rush tells us what's what with local music this week.
Hey Tucson, I'm Sophie Gibson-Rush from KXCI, here to share some harebrained thoughts and recommendations regarding our illustrious local music scene. So a couple of nights ago, I was listening to the Resonars album, Crummy Desert Sound. I love the Resonars, and I'm going to talk more about them and the show they're playing tonight later on in the segment. It was the title that got me thinking. Crummy Desert Sound. And I realized that on this show, I say those words a lot. Desert sound, desert vibe, desert rock. And I say them usually when I don't know what else to say, when the classification is elusive, or when I'm honestly too lazy to accurately describe a group's sound. What does desert sound even mean? The scene uses it all the time, the nation uses it to describe this scene, and I use it, but it seems to me that desert rock remains largely undefined. Karima Walker, Tsitsa, the Resonars, Mute Swan, and Naima Moore, How Gelb have all been classified as desert rock, either by their own publicity or by some other article or media. if these radically different musicians can all comfortably fit under the categorization, then I'm starting to think that the categorization has little to do with the music and more to do with the excellent collection of Western shirts between all these people. The desert is trendy. Check the Yves Saint Laurent winter runways, the New York Times articles on neon and mid-century modern, and the influx of evacuees from Brooklyn and Portland. But using a classification because there's a trendy aesthetic that goes along with it is completely reductive. Does this classification limit us as a growing music scene? We don't say Pacific Northwest sound or New York City sound. Sense of place and art that comes from that place are inextricable. We draw inspiration from our environment. I have no argument there. But musicians from Tucson are interpreting their environment through a multitude of different voices and styles. The desert can be conveyed as accurately through mambo as it can through goth pop. Geography and genre are further apart than you think. And the phrase desert rock is meaningless. With all that said, the musicians who have adopted that descriptor for themselves are, of course, entitled to do so. Hal Gelb has been making music in Tucson since the 70s. Matt Rendon of the Resonars since the early 90s. Who am I to question their identity? So, as I said before, the Resonars are one of my favorite bands, and they're having a big week. Tonight, they play with the excellent psych pop band from Austin, Telenovela. This show is at Congress, and it's free, and I'm stoked. Then on Friday, Burger Records will release the complete Resonars, which consists of all 7 albums, all the EPs, and will end up being 126 songs total, 45 of them previously unreleased. There's so much music here, it'll be hard to know where to start. I began listening to the Resonars when Matt Milliner recommended Side A, which is an 18-minute long kaleidoscopic pop dream that left me feeling completely emotionally satisfied. Songs like that affect me. Songs that affect me like this are once in a blue moon. You could start there, or you could listen to any track off of the Best of the Resonars collection. Speaking of 18-minute songs, or longer, a lot longer, this Friday, December 2nd, the Tucson Symphony brings you Beer, Brats, and Beethoven. This takes place at the Tucson Music Hall. Dragoon, Brews, and Brats will be available starting at 5. Then at 7:30, the party moves inside for an all-Beethoven program featuring Symphonies 1 and 2 and the Coriolan Overture. These symphonies are early Beethoven, which means they're still in the style of the classical era rather than his later stuff, which is bigger, more lush, more romantic era. Beethoven's early work is also completely derivative of his heroes, Mozart and Haydn, and you can hear their influence all over these symphonies. We're all copying someone, right? Here's one thing that makes it good old Ludwig van. The 4th movement of the 2nd Symphony, the Allegro molto, opens with a riff that sounds like a hiccup or flatulence. According to musicologist Robert Greenberg, Beethoven's gastric problems, particularly in times of great stress, like the fall of 1802, were legendary. It has been understood that almost since the day of its premiere, that is what the symphony is all about. Next, we'll find out that the Moonlight Sonata is about salmonella poisoning. Sorry if I ruined the beer and brat party for anyone, but this program is dynamite, so try to bask in the classical mastery of sound rather than thinking of Beethoven's toilet adventures. Also on Friday, Katie Haverly and the Aviary, House of Stairs, and Birds and Arrows perform at the Flycatcher. I got to interview Katie, Ben, Derek, and Julius Monday night on Locals Only, and I was blown away by the talent, but also the nitty-gritty skill of each and every musician in this band. The session will be up on Creative Tucson soon, so check it out. House of Stairs is from Phoenix and features Holly Pyle, a remarkable jazz vocalist. And married pair Andrea and Pete Connolly make up the duo Birds and Arrows. And beyond being 2 of the kindest people on earth, they make music with enough earnestness and sincerity to challenge the bluff of any cool, detached concert goer. Originally from Durham, North Carolina, they're a recent and much appreciated addition to the Tucson soundscape. If you're a musician or just a concerned citizen and there's something you'd like me to take a listen to and potentially feature, please feel free to email me anytime. It's gibsonrushmusic@gmail.com or find me on Facebook. Be good out there, Tucson. Stay warm and consider adopting a stray cat or two for the winter. I'll see you next week.